Steady. Go, Anne.
Okay, thank you. Yes, I'm Anne. I'm one of the eco-crafters, and Sue is another one of the eco-crafters. The eco-crafters is just a group that meets at St Nick's once a week in normal times for a couple of hours. And we try to, we all like doing crafts, so we try to do crafts in a sustainable manner. That's really what we mean by eco-crafters. And sometimes during those 2 hours, we'll each be doing our own crafts, whatever we're working on at home, and occasionally we'll all do something together. So we haven't done that since last March. We've been meeting socially on Zoom, but this is a brand new attempt for us to do a workshop online. As Ivana said, the council has given us some funding to do it. It's good to see you all, even if it's only digitally. Having said that, I can't see you all. I can only see some of you, and I daren't put you all up because I've got to be able to see when I fold down my laptop what you can see here. So I just daren't do that. So if there's any interaction, Ivana, perhaps you can let me know what's going on. Can I stress straight away that what we're going to do today, and I'm sure Sue would agree with me, is they're very simple. So there's no worry about it being technically difficult. So I'm doing the Beeswax Wrap. Beeswax Wrap is a very good way of reducing the use of single-use plastic, cling film as much as anything, because it's so versatile and it's antibiotic. So you can use it to cover bowls, you can wrap your bread in it, you can use it for sandwiches, half a fruit can be put in it. You can even, I've got some here, the first two I bought, and what surprised me was how expensive they seemed. I actually got a pack of 3 different sizes. So these were 2 of them. They were from the Yorkshire show. Those 2 and the small one, which I've made into a little, I'll show you at the end, and please tell me if I forget, that any square one you can make into a little pocket. So you can have a big one to put your sandwiches in, or you can have a little one to put a few nuts and raisins in or something like that. So good even for children to take to school with their lunch. So I'll show you that at the end. But you can do round ones for putting on your bowls. I find a 40 centimetre square one is very good for sandwiches. Smaller ones than that you can use to wrap up cheese or a small loaf, that kind of thing. As I said, I think they seem to be quite expensive when you buy them, and it surprised me actually in our buying beeswax pellets for this, and if you've got some cotton fabric to use, just anything left over, it's not expensive at all, really. So a lot cheaper to make them than to buy them, and would make even a nice little present for somebody as well. Okay, so I've provided the York people anyway with instructions. So if you're not doing it today, you've got quite detailed instructions as to how to do it. You will have been given beeswax pellets. I think you'll not have them in a container. One thing I would say is they do seem to have a little life of their own. So when you use them, they can easily roll onto the floor. So be careful if you're pushing them out of some kind of plastic envelope or a paper envelope even. Probably better to pick up a few with your fingers rather than try and shoot them out, because you don't need very many. You'll also have been given 2 sheets of parchment, baking parchment, and some instructions. So that's all you need, other than your own piece of fabric. Now, we do suggest that you have a piece of paper at hand, because if some beeswax does come out from the baking parchment, the best thing to do is to put your paper on it and iron on it, and then the paper will absorb the beeswax and limit the stain onto whatever you've spilt it onto. I've just put a new ironing board cover on today because I was quite embarrassed at the state of my ironing board, but I am using the the old one actually do the work on, so that if I get stains on it, it's on the old one, which is going to be thrown away anyway. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is put the flap of my laptop down so you can see what I'm doing, hopefully. Ivana, please shout if you can't. Okay.
All good.
Yeah, good. So you need your 2 pieces of parchment. Now I've used mine before, so I've got to be careful that I use them the right way up, because there's bits of beeswax on, so they need to be on the inside when you make the sandwich. So lay out the parchment, and then the material you're going to use, a piece of cotton, lay on top of there. You don't have to do it all at once. I find it best not to, because you've got more control, but put it to about 2 inches in from the sides, because if then some beeswax goes out, it won't go on to your cover. And then you're going to sprinkle on your beeswax pellets. Now I think in the instructions I put about 20 for 2 inches, but I'm told that you may have different kinds of pellets to me. But the idea is that you don't need much, so, and you can always add more afterwards. So just sprinkle some on, and I tend to, when I've got one this size or bigger, I will do it in quarters. And then you put your other piece of parchment on. Again, I've got to make sure I've got the right way up, and you line it up with your other parchment rather than with the material, of course, because so you've made your sandwich and the material has is in from the edges. Now put the iron on. It does say in the instructions a moderate iron, but mine I don't think is the hottest of irons, so I do actually have it up to the top. You'll soon find what works for you. And what we're going to do when it gets up to heat is you just put the iron on, and you can see the pellets melting, and when it's melted then you can move the iron around to cover the material, and you can usually see where it isn't working. It's not fully up, but so you can just press it down for some time, and I can see that working now. And what you can do is working from the edges so that you're using all the wax, it's not coming out at the sides. And if you've got some missed bits, it doesn't matter, we can go back over those. So what I would say is, if you lift off to see where there's any missing, make sure that you put the greaseproof paper, the parchment, back down the same way, otherwise you're going to get a very sticky iron. So I can see that there's a little bit missing there, and at the very corner and the edges there. And there. So it's just a matter of keep going until it's all been covered. I should have said it should be a dry iron. I can actually hear a bit of mine water from previous time hissing. I haven't pushed the thing up, but there's no water in it as such. So then when you've done 1/4, you can lift it up. I tend to push that into the center just so it's not in touch with your ironing board cover, and then work on the next 1/4. So by now you'll have got your eye in as to how much beeswax you need to put on. It's surprisingly little, really. Try that, maybe done some more down there.
Is everyone following okay? Did anyone have questions?
Again, just press down, let it melt. And it melts quite quickly as well. Now I've got a little bit that's come out the side there, so I'm going to just go on to the the greaseproof paper. So I've just, can you see that or not? It came out onto the greaseproof paper, so I thought, well, I'll just iron that up, and you just keep moving your paper around until all the beeswax has been soaked up. More required there, but it's best, I suppose it's best to go with too little to start with. You can always add more rather than wasting. And as I said, I've used mine before, and so if you're going to make some more at the end, just fold your parchment up and you can use it again, and there will be some beeswax bits left on it. In fact, they do flake all over the place if you're not careful, so best to fold it inside. And you can use it again. Again, no waste. So that's 2 done. How are the people doing it? Getting on, do we know? If you've got a very big piece, of course, it'll take a bit longer.
No questions yet, Anne.
Sorry?
No questions yet.
No questions yet. I'm just hoping they can, you know, do their own and manage it.
Yeah, I can see some irons moving.
Good.
Very vigorously. A lot of ironing going on.
It's not their smalls.
If they are,
So
they might be a little bit.
I mean, we're nearly there, really. So, you know, there's nothing intricate about it at all. The beeswax is being soaked into the fabric. There are different ways of doing it. You can do it in the oven, which I haven't had a go at. This seems simple enough to me without warming up your oven. And at the end, I've got one more quarter to do. You'll find it, you'll have to let it cool, but then you'll find it's quite stiff to start with, which is fine. See how that goes.
And of course, if you've got a gas oven, then that will be a bit less green doing it that way.
Yeah.
Than electricity, because if you're electricity, the grid is greening up all the time. Plus, you might be on a green tariff already. So this is probably quite a good way to do it.
Well, I mean, you know, for the length of time, the oven would only have warmed up, wouldn't it? I can't remember what temperature you do it at. And over time, when you use your beeswax wrap, it does go for floppier. But you can just redo this. You can just get some more beeswax and add a bit more. As you use it, all you do to clean it is you just wipe it down with some warm soapy water and leave it to dry. I usually hang it on my microwave to dry, and that's it. So that's it.
Do they need topping up, Anne? I mean, how long do they last?
Well, the ones I bought from the Yorkshire Show, it must have been 18 months ago, you know, because it was August or whenever the Yorkshire Show's on. Sorry, I can now. You know, it's August, and of course it wasn't August last year. And it was only when we were going to do this I thought, oh, I'll have a go at that topping up, because although they go floppy, it doesn't seem to interfere with how they operate.
No.
So I had to go, and yes, it does work. In fact, because these were 2 of them, and I haven't done that one. Yeah. But I have done that one, and I know it's smaller, but it's stiffer.
Yeah, I see.
Like I said, it didn't seem to interfere with its use. So then, at this point is where you turn off your iron. And like I say, it's quite stiff. But what happens is when you use it, whether to put round sandwiches or to put over a bowl, it's the warmth of your hands that slightly melts the beeswax, and so it molds it. I'll just push that down so you can see. So that's just what I had the pellets in. So it sits there almost flat. But if you just, I mean, you can put an elastic band round if you wanted.
Oh wow.
But just and I mean that's very stiff at the moment. It's not even cooled yet, But yeah. So to wrap it round some cheese or something, it just. And yet it's slightly sticky. So like when I showed the little envelope that I made, you can almost press down the flap, and it almost sticks, if you know what I mean. So it's very, very handy. Just wondering if there's anything I haven't told you.
The pouch that you made, did you do anything specific for that?
I'll show you how to do that. I'll use a very big one, which I've already got. So it needs to be square to do it. Can we still see? So, and this is very stiff actually. So you fold the square to a triangle, opposite corner to opposite corner. Then you fold the two in, but one overlapping the other, like an envelope. And then the one on top, you push into the center of the one on the other side, and then you just pull the one down, and that's where you put your sandwich or whatever you want to put in there. And so then when you push that down, like I say, it's sort of quite sticky, so I don't think it'll fall apart. I haven't actually used them like that. I keep meaning to, and I keep forgetting. I just wrap them up. But I quite like that. I think it's a nice idea. Nice idea of just for a few nuts and raisins or something, which are quite difficult to do otherwise, or a few sweets, whatever. So I've said about how to clean them. Oh, and at the end of their lives, because it's beeswax and cotton, you can put it on the compost, or you can put it on use as a firelighter. So from beginning to end, you're not wasting, and it's sustainable. How are the other people getting on? Have they finished? Or
Jacqueline, Elizabeth, how are you doing? Because you're still making it by the looks of it.
Is everyone else finished?
No, there's no race.
We've had a right fiasco with ours.
Oh dear.
Go on. What's happened?
The entire ironing board, including the floor, is covered in beeswax.
I did say.
But it's fine because we chose not to use paper.
Yeah.
Apart from that,
you're doing all right with it.
But I sort of, because we were getting into it quite a lot. Do we take this off?
What, the greaseproof paper?
What you said. No, don't take it off yet. Look, you take this. You take the parchment paper off.
The parchment paper should have been wider than your material. I think you've done it the other way around, have you? Did you have the material wider than?
We were given the paper and we were given the material.
No, I know, but that's why you do it in quarters if it's very big. But yes, you take it off when you've finished. Yeah.
Oh my Lord. Sorry, that's probably my fault. I should have listened more.
So that's why I said
I was over enthusiastic. I was so excited.
I know the ironing was taking over.
That's why I thought I'd better do one myself that was in quarters. I just find it's more control that way.
Was anyone else doing it while we were going along? Graham, Amanda, were you partaking?
So, what do we
Annie, they haven't unpacked the iron yet.
Yeah, sorry, we have just moved. So,
oh yes, yeah.
Yes.
I managed to find one iron, but that's the best iron. I have my crafting iron, and that's what I've got to find.
Yeah.
Meg, I thought you started. Sorry, Ivana, go on.
No, just thinking, I mean, now you've seen it. For those people who have instructions, hopefully that will make it easier to follow them. So, yeah, and as I said on the chat, in case you haven't seen it, if you're not from York and would like the instructions, I'm very happy to pass them on if you're interested. So just let me know.
I have got those other facts that I looked up on the
Ooh,
internet if we
yes.
wanted,
Oh,
but I didn't know how we were going.
yes. Yeah.
I thought I'd better, learn a bit about beeswax if I was going to do this. So I did look on the internet to find some things, and it says that beeswax is produced by honeybees, and it's produced in the abdominal glands of the worker bees, and they deposit it in the hive, where the hive worker bees use it to form the hexagonal honeycomb cells that we're all familiar with, and they're used for honey storage and to protect the larvae and pupae. And once they've filled it with the ones that for honey, they then seal it up with another bit of beeswax. New wax is initially colourless and clear, but it becomes opaque through the bees chewing it and becomes yellowy in colour through contamination with pollen. You can buy white beeswax pellets, or probably other forms of it as well, but it's usually that it's been bleached, so not a good idea to have that. Accept that beeswax is yellowish, so your materials will go yellowish. In fact, its colour can vary from nearly white to brownish. It's got lots of uses and has been used for centuries. It's been found in Egyptian tombs, in wrecked Viking ships, and in Roman ruins. It never goes bad and can be heated and reused. Beeswax, this is, which in a way Sue will show later. Uses historically and present day include candles, as Sue will be demonstrating, and the candles are said to burn brighter and cleaner than other candles. And I can vouch for that, because we did this workshop with the eco-crafters online a few weeks ago, and I made the candle that Sue's going to demonstrate, and I burnt mine. I lit it afterwards, and it was very bright and very clean. There was no black smoke coming off it. It was very nice. Looked like what's it called? Brandy snap, as it's burning as well, which is nice. It's also used, or probably still is as well as in the past, making bows. I don't know if that means violin bows or bow and arrows bows, possibly both. In sealing wax for official documents, as an ancient form of dental tooth filling. Which could be fun, but it's antibiotic, you see, and it's flexible, so you can see if you have nothing else, then it might be better than nothing. Modelling material to strengthen and preserve sewing thread and shoelaces, in furniture and shoe polish, in the manufacture of food, cosmetics and pharmaceuticals, the waxing of surfboards, and by musicians on the surface of tambourines to strengthen wind instruments, reeds, and my favourite, to form the mouthpieces of a didgeridoo. Or didgeridoos.
Brilliant.
Okay, so if there's any questions, I'll try and answer them. Otherwise, hopefully with the instructions and having seen that, you'll be able to do your own.
Thank you so much, Anne. That was brilliant again. So while if there are no questions, then we'll move on to a quiz, because I thought, over to you. Let's see how much you know about pollinators. And of course, in the meantime, those who haven't finished with their with the wrap, you can carry on working on it. And hopefully at the end, maybe you could show off your results. But I thought, let's test how much you know about pollinators. So I've prepared a little quiz. And by the way, was anyone puzzled by why the pellets were in a crisp packet? Was that a surprise to anyone? Can anyone think of why I might have done that?
Because they're from the recycling area that we drop our crisp packets off at St. Nick's.
Yes, yes, we can actually recycle them. So yeah, rather than sort of getting grease-proof bags, that would be new. I thought, oh, I know, we've got quite a stash of crisp bags. So yes, that's why I used those. And yeah, we collect things like crisp packets and biscuit wrappers and toothpaste tubes and things like that, which we can send off for recycling. So yeah, that's why. Very good guess. Right, so let's see. Are you up for a quiz, by the way? I should have checked. Yeah, test your knowledge a bit. So, I don't know if can you see the screen all right? Hopefully. So, quiz time. So if you just want to shout out if you think you know the answer, and don't worry, it's not, you know, I'm not going to test you or anything like that. I'm afraid there's no prizes either. So maybe learning something a bit new that you may or may not know, and I'll tell you the answers. I'm not going to kind of torture you by not telling you straight away. So we've talked about honeybees. This is why we're here tonight. And this is the lovely creature that we can thank for providing the materials. So this is a Western.
240.
Oh, okay. You're guessing already without me even saying the question. Fine. Very good guesses. Yeah, why not chaotic? Yeah. Yes, very good. So, yes, there are.
266. Very good.
Yeah, so it kind of depends on which source you go to, I must
I'm
say.
sure.
You know, it's not entirely clear cut, so I use the one that's sort of at the bottom of the screen. Oh, bless you. And basically, honeybees are just one species of many. And yeah, there are 25 species of bumblebees. 240 species of bees are actually solitary. So only, I think, about 26 species, including the honeybee and the bumblebees, are sociable species. The others prefer to go alone. Yeah, about 90% of solitary bees make up 240 species. So next one. So this is a garden bumblebee. You might recognize, you might have seen one of those around. But who else pollinates wildflowers and crops?
Ooh. All of them, is that?
Oh, you're good. You know your stuff. Yes. So, yes, bumblebees and other bees, butterflies and moths. And of course, there's about, I think, is it 6,000 or 4,000 species of moths in the UK? Not all of them might necessarily be pollinators, but quite a lot of them will be. Flies, which lots of people hate, but actually a lot of them, I think there's only 5 or 6 species that are associated with the sort of, you know, grubby, horrible behavior we sort of don't like. But most flies actually, again, have very useful functions. They are pollinators. And there's lots of other insects that pollinate as well. Beetles, wasps, that might be a bit of a surprise. Thrips, don't actually know what they look like. I meant to look one up. But yeah, lots of other insects pollinate wildflowers and crops. And not in the UK. I don't think we have any bats that pollinate in the UK, but elsewhere in the world, bats also perform as pollinators. So there's a lot of wildlife that actually we rely on to pollinate the crops that we like to eat. And a bit on that later. Now, just to kind of one for crafters.
Ooh.
This is a European carder bee.
Oh.
Where do you think it got its name from? Does it stack the leaves as if in a card deck? Does it scrape hair from plant leaves to use as nest lining? Or does it card or check the identity of bees that are trying to enter the hive?
Well, as soon as we're talking about bees, that would oh, it's the bee. I would have said bees.
Yeah, you've done your studying. By the way, does everyone know what carding is in craft?
Well, I mean,
it's a way to process wool.
Yeah.
So you card the wool in order to make it so that you can weave it or felt it later. You card wool. So yes, bees scrape the hair from plant leaves. And you can see in the picture here that it sort of balls up the hair to take away, and then line their nest with it, because undoubtedly it will be kind of comfy and warm. So now, how much of our fruit and vegetables actually is pollinated by insects? So think of your chocolates and tomatoes, strawberries, squashes, pumpkins. Any guesses? What percentage comes out? What do we get thanks to pollinators? And that's obviously different species, not necessarily volume, but the variety of food. Any guesses?
84.
Yeah, 84.
Yeah. Oh, you're all so well educated. Yes. Yeah.
Wow.
So 1 out of every 3 mouthfuls of our food depends on pollinators, says Bug Life.
Wow.
And about so it's 84% of EU crops rely on insect pollination, and about 80% of wildflowers also rely on insects to pollinate them. And globally, apparently, the value of the crops that we wouldn't have if it wasn't pollinated, the value would be $215 billion. But I don't know about you, but I don't think you can really put value on being able to eat strawberries and chocolates and things like that. I think that's priceless. Plus all that wonderful wildlife that does all of the hard work. Not just those honeybees, but all those butterflies and moths, and you just can't put a price tag on that.
Wow.
I don't think, anyway.
Yeah.
So slightly on the sort of sad note, but we'll go back to the positives again later. What percentage of insects is undergoing dramatic rates of decline, as BBC has reported?
20%.
Anyone else?
40%.
Yes, I'm afraid around the world,
Wow.
it's about 40% of all insect species are suffering declines. And of course, that has knock-on effects on other species that rely on those insects for food. And the other study actually says that bees, ants, and beetles, for instance, are disappearing 8 times faster than mammals, birds, or reptiles. In the UK, a third of wild bees and hoverflies have experienced declines in terms of areas where they were found, while about 10%, so that's the other figure on that, they have become more abundant. But unfortunately, because the diversity is being lost, so some species are winning, but it's the minority, and those are becoming more abundant. But that reduces the resilience of the whole ecosystem, and it may actually lead to plagues of certain, usually invasive species, which are more adaptable to changing conditions. So you get fewer species, but maybe higher numbers, but that's not necessarily very good. So doing what we can to improve biodiversity will help us tackle climate change and ensure future food supplies. And there's stuff that we can all do something to help with that. And just as a sort of round off with one final questions, just to show off what we could be losing if we don't do something about this. I just love this one. I find this the hoverfly in my garden, and it's the sunfly or the footballer hoverfly. Anyone know why it's a footballer? Any guesses? I'm no football fan, so I wouldn't know.
It's a 4-2-4 formation.
Well, apparently it's to do with Newcastle, I believe. It's the stripes on the thorax. So those stripes is what makes it a footballer hoverfly. So now, which of these are true about hoverflies? What do you reckon? Which things do you think they can do?
A, B, and E.
How do you know?
I don't know.
Wow. Okay. Well, you're bang on the money.
Yay.
Yes, they can fly at speeds of 40 kilometers an hour. Apparently, aphid-infested plants give off a certain odor and that can promote reproduction, whilst uninfected plants will actually cause the flies to refrain from reproducing. So they can actually sort of almost control the numbers of the hoverflies, which, yeah, and they can fly backwards. So that wasn't true. And yeah, if you want to instruct them into a garden, carrots and mint should do the trick. So thank you for taking part. I hope you've enjoyed that and possibly learned a few things. And now I'll hand over to Sue.
Excuse me, Ivana. Sorry, before you go, where do they come? Where would you find one of those footballer flies things?
Well, we get them at St. Nick's. I've seen them in my garden. So yeah, they are quite common actually.
I've never seen one.
Yeah. I
Thank
think
you.
they can be probably a bit easy to miss, so you kind of need to look out. But yeah, they are quite a common species. And there's loads of different hoverflies. It's well worth looking out for them. So while, yeah, if there's any more questions while Sue sets up, because Sue needs to change positions.
Oh, I think I'm there. Right. Yes, excuse me, I'm nearly there. Right. I had to sit on the stairs like the lady who's wandering around the house looking for a good internet connection. Can you hear me, by the way? I've started by sitting on the stairs, and now I'm sitting downstairs in the hall on a very low footstool that I've already fallen off once tonight when I was practicing.
Oh no.
So if I disappear and you hear a big bump, it's me. So I'm going to put this here now and hope that you can see me. I can't see anything at the moment. Just a little. Can you see me?
Yeah.
I'm not on a big screen. I'm only on a tiny little bit at the right-hand side.
Yeah, no, you're good.
Is that all right?
Yeah, we can see you.
So if I hold this up, you can see it.
Yes.
Yeah, perfectly. Yeah.
Now, because I haven't got this highfalutin thing that tilts, I did try my recipe book holder, but it didn't work. I'm working more or less in the air here because you won't be able to see the flap very much. So, first of all, yes, I'm Sue and I'm an eco-crafter. And in the 60s, which dates me very much, when I was a teenager, I started candle making. My father was very keen on crafts. We went to an Ideal Home exhibition or something like that, and he bought me a kit. And I made copious amounts of candles, from yogurt pot type ones to ones in glass molds to ones in rubber molds that were very ornate, that you coloured. And but of course they weren't eco-friendly because at that stage we weren't really into eco-friendly crafts. So we used molten wax, stearine to help the wax release from the mould, colour and perfume. So not eco-friendly at all. But they worked very well, but they're not the sort of thing that you can do with children because of the hot molten wax. And when Ivana asked me to demonstrate this, I thought, well, how lovely, because, you know, as an ex-teacher, primary school teacher, you could quite easily do this with a small child. And, you know, you can make up your own designs. You can get this sort of wax coloured, which isn't very eco-friendly because it must use dye, and actually it doesn't look as nice if it's green or red. The joy of this is that it's actually very pretty. There isn't a right side or a wrong side, I don't think. And I'll just show you some of the things we're going to do. This one is the straight candle that we're going to start with. I have actually unrolled this and joined it a few times, so that's why I've got the lines here. So that's the straight one, and this is the twisted one. This is a single twist. We're going to do a double twist as well, if we have time. And this one, because I demonstrated with our own eco group, I have a little bit to play around with. So this is one of these sheets, but it's cut in half this way and joined just by the warmth of your fingers, and it's made a short fat candle. Now you could go on and on making this even fatter. You've seen some in shops, I'm sure, that are much fatter than this. I haven't burnt any of mine because I needed them to show you. This last one is one I bought many years ago and have never lit because it's just so pretty. Can you see that? And I did think, well, it must be made as a mold, but when I've looked, it actually is just wrapped round. It's thin strips wrapped around, and they just put a little bee in, and it actually cost an awful lot in a craft shop, if I remember rightly. So I might unwrap that later and have another go. Because I've tried before to do this with the other group, and I ended up with some quite brittle wax in the end, but was breaking. I actually used a bit of it to make a beeswax wrap, because all I did was take little bits and put it on just as Anne has said, so I didn't waste it. So if you have anything left over at the end that you want to use again, that's it. So, oh, somebody was talking and they've gone. So I've got my instructions here. I think it's very therapeutic, this, because it's so easy and it's a nice feel. So what we're going to do is we're going to do the straight one first, because we won't cut it until we've done it. If you've got just the one piece, you can quite easily carefully unwrap it and use it again for the next one and the next one. So I've got a hairdryer here, if I can reach it without falling off my stool, and I'm just going to give it a very quick blast, if you excuse the noise. So that just softens it up a bit, because like the lady in Connecticut, it's a bit cold here, not quite as cold as there, and my hall is quite chilly. So here I've got a piece of the wick. Now the wick you can buy in different thicknesses. This is a thin one, and of course the thinner the wick, the quicker the candle will burn. So I'm going to put it just on the edge. And once I've started it, I'll just show you what I'm doing. It's very difficult on a chair. I did tidy up my dining room so it looked nice. And then we discovered that I had no internet connection in there. So what I've done is I've just folded it over just a little at the end to encase the wick. You see that?
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm going to start rolling. So you fold it there, and you need to keep rolling as tight as you can. Now, it's not very easy when you haven't got a flat surface, but I'll just gradually roll and show you. I have to roll it to me rather than away, and I'll stop it in a minute and show you what I've done. So it's already started rolling, if you can see that. There's the wick at the end. So you just carry on rolling. Oh, I can see Anne, that's nice. Can you see all right, Anne? You're my page. Yep.
Yeah.
And the tighter you roll it, the better it will probably burn. I'm hoping Anne's going to show us, or Ivana, a photo of the one that she burnt while they were having their romantic dinner.
Should have kept it, shouldn't I, till this weekend? I don't know how to share it, Ivana.
I think Ivana did last time, so, or perhaps she could. So all I've done is roll and roll and roll until I've got a tube that's actually, if you look, quite close together, even though I'm doing it in the air rather than on a good surface, and even though my hall is quite cold. So that's your straight one. Very quick, very easy.
So now, how much wick did you leave out? Does it matter?
Not really. I haven't. There's hardly any at the bottom. Most of mine is at the top.
Yeah. Okay.
So it's about half an inch, 3/4 of an inch.
I can see it now.
So, yeah. So once you've done that, it's quite easy to unroll and do the next one. So while I'm unrolling, I'm going to give it another blast just to soften it again. And then we're going to cut it into 2 triangles straight across. I'm going to do it freehand rather than have a ruler, and just hope it turns out okay. Now mine, as you can see, has torn a little bit here because it's quite cold and I'm unwrapping it. But it doesn't matter because it will just join together with the warmth of your fingers. It's very malleable. So here's my wick again. I'm going to give it another blast, if you'll excuse the noise and everything blowing around.
Jacqueline, Elizabeth, have you got more than one piece of wax? No.
I've cut mine in two so that I can make a fat one.
That's fine.
And
Don't worry.
Mum's just made a long, thin one.
Okay.
Right.
Oh,
Well,
sugar.
hang on to your two, and I'll just show you how, for joining it for a fat one, you just either heat it up with a hairdryer
Would
or
I
just
join it like that?
yes,
Yeah.
and hold it with your fingers. It will soon melt into a join. I'm going to
I've
just
got really warm hands.
Well, have you got a hairdryer handy?
I have.
You could just give that edge a quick blast. I'm going to cut this into 2 triangles now. But don't worry, if you cut it into 2 triangles and you want to go back to make a fat one, then it soon joins up, just like, I don't know this young lady's name. What do you call? Are you Nikki?
Yeah.
No, Elizabeth. It was Elizabeth chatting to you. Elizabeth and
You
Jacqueline.
can join it. You can join it just the same. If you want to go back and make a fat one, you can join it just the same. Now, if you roll up from a short edge, either short edge, you can get the single, which is this one. That's just a single wrap, right? But as I've got 2 triangles here, I thought I'd just show you the double wrap, where you put 2 triangles together slightly off. And can you see that? Slightly off. Can you see? I don't know how much you can see. Is that okay? One is slightly down, yes? So then, starting with a short edge, yes, that's right. Starting with a short edge, you roll. I'll start here because this is the bit that I had the crack in, and I'm going to put the wick there. I'm going to fold it over before I lift it up and show you, because, as I say, I've not got a table and it doesn't make it very easy. So once I've got the wick folded, and don't worry if it cracks slightly, because you can work quite well to get it back. So once I've got the wick folded, all I'm going to do is just the same as the straight one. I'm going to roll it and hope that it is very cold in my hall, so it probably will crack a little bit. Once you get started, you roll. No, it's too cold. I'll have to give it a blast, if you'll excuse me. We'll try again now. Once it starts to roll, it's fine. It's just the starting off process if you're cold. I've got cold fingers as well, I think. So what you end up with is a double twist. So I don't know whether you can see that.
Yeah, that looks great.
2 layers. Can you see that?
Yeah.
You've got the 2 layers, right?
Right.
So that's your double, and for the single, you're just doing that with the 1. So it still can unwrap. I mean, each time you do it, it's a little bit more fragile, but you can then, with your fingers, just join together, either with your fingers or the hairdryer. This is where I got my crumbly bits before, because as you can see, this has crumbled a bit. But you can just, with your fingers or the hairdryer, join them up together and make your large one again, or your little short fat ones by cutting it the other way, just by lining up and pressing it.
All right.
So that's basically the very, very easy candle making. You see, I've only just pushed that together, but most of it is holding. So, and it does smell nice. I'm not a honey eater. It's something that I don't like at all. But the smell of it actually is rather pleasant. I'm told people put them in lingerie drawers and things. So I'm going to tell you what else I need to tell you. Yeah, they're family friendly. You can buy sheets that are coloured. There's a lot around on the internet. And I know Ivana is investigating vegan beeswax, which won't be called beeswax, because it's not made from bees, but they'll have to call it something else. And because I'm an avid reader and we've had lockdown and all I really do is read or craft, I thought you might like to hear about some of the books, not encyclopedic books about bees, but the novels that are around. And one of the sets, I think of 18 books, all about bees and Sherlock Holmes, is written by an author called Laurie King, and Laurie R. King. I think you've got to put the R in the middle to get her. And she made a whole series of Sherlock Holmes in his declining years, meeting up with a young girl who I think had just lost her mother. And over all this series, I think they marry at some stage, they're investigating mysteries with bees in the context, which I think is rather nice. She's a lovely writer. She writes some crime novels that are fantastic, but this set is rather nice. So the books are by Laurie R. King. The first one is called The Beekeepers Apprentice, and as I said, she's written 18. And then there was a book called The Secret Life of Bees, which is by Sue Monk Kidd. It's 2 words, Monk Kidd. And it's set in 1964. And it's a film that's been on Netflix and YouTube. I think it was released in 2008. And it's got Jennifer Hudson in it, Dakota Fanning, Alicia Keys, and Queen Latifah. And that's a very nice one. And the film that I watched recently, that I'm sure comes from a book, was just called Mr. Holmes. And it was about him, very elderly, and his housekeeper and that little boy, and it concerned the bees, and it was rather gentle and nice. So if anybody is bored in lockdown, which I certainly am, but I have had my first vaccination. I can't get out yet, but hopefully to the hairdressers soon. But they are books that I think, without being informative about too much about the nature of bees, adds bees to the story, which I think is rather nice. And I don't think I've got any more to tell you, really. I think that's about all I wrote down. If anybody wants those titles and hasn't got them, they can send me a message. If I haven't told you anything that you want to know, please ask me now or send me a message. That's all.
Sue, I've got a question, Sue.
Oh,
These candles that we've made, like, how long what's their burning life? Do you know that? Is that like too technical a question?
I've been able to burn mine because I had to demonstrate and show them to you. Anne could probably tell you that, but it also does depend on the thickness of the wick. The thin wick burn much quicker.
Oh, there it is. That's mine.
That's lovely.
Pretty, isn't it? Oh, thank you, Ivana. That's lovely. Yeah. And I don't know how long did it last, Anne?
Was it 1 hour?
I think you said an hour.
I think it was 1 hour to get down to that.
Yeah.
It was the double wrap one, so it used the whole sheet, but double. Yeah. But it was, really nice glow.
That's the thin wick. So the thicker wick, I think, would burn slower. And you can buy all the different things on the internet. You can buy anything on the internet, really, can't you? But it was very pretty the way it burnt. And now I'll be able to burn mine, won't I?
Yes.
Yeah, I might just add, so of course it's also because it's clean burning and it's all natural materials, even though, any kind of combustion is not really good for our health in terms of sort of breathing smoke in and things like that. But when it comes to burning a candle, certainly burning one that's made from beeswax, it will be much better for you than those sort of scented candles, which can be full of chemicals that are doing who knows what in your lungs. So yeah, definitely, if you need to burn a candle, I would recommend burning one that's made out of natural materials. So have we got any further questions?
I just wanted to say that about the sheets, because I've been a beekeeper in the past, and the reason I just think it's interesting, this hexagonal thing is a very, very specific size and shape that the honeybees recognise, and so the sheets are actually what are put in the frames in a beekeeping hive, and beekeepers make their own of it. and it has to be exactly that size so that the bees therefore make the little cells above it that they then put either honey or the queen lays their eggs in, and I mean, it's just amazing. And the speed with which a hive of bees fill this up with honey in the peak of the season, which is sort of May and June, is just astonishing. You can have a hive of bees that have got a couple of layers of frames, so that'll be 40 frames which are completely empty, and they fill with honey within 10 days if it's a really good pollen season. It's absolutely astonishing. And that involves not just making the honey, but making the wax that makes those cells, and then the honey in it, and then capping them off so that they're nicely ready to be harvested. I mean, and it's just an absolutely astonishing part of nature. And I haven't kept bees for about 4 years, but just seeing these bits of wax has really taken me back there, and it's the smell and everything, and that very exact size. And if you tried to make it, if someone tried to copy it and made the cells a slightly different size, bees just ignore it because they can make their own, but this sets them off exactly if it's exactly that size. And I just think it's lovely to make candles out of that exact size.
Wow.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. That's brilliant. Of course, yeah, some people like to just leave the bees to do their own thing. And I think there's definitely advantages to that. But yeah, if you need to make it for them, then getting the size right, I'm sure definitely helps. Yeah. Oh, well, thank you. So if there are no more questions, then I'll move us on just to, so we sort of talked a bit about
Thank
sort of
you,
what's in.
Sue.
Yes,
Oh,
thank
you're
you.
welcome.
Yes, thank you very much.
Enjoyable. Great fun.
Oh, this is I've used just my fingers to put it back together, the two triangles. You can see how easily it goes back with just a little bit of warmth, and you could just warm it up and use it again to make the tall one, or as you've done, cut it in half and make a short fat one. So it is very malleable. It's the warmth of your fingers, like the beeswax wraps, which I had no idea that it was the warmth of your hands that did it, and always wondered why people were buying the wraps until Anne demonstrated last week and showed us that it was the warmth of your hand that moulded it, and then it suddenly dawned on me how useful they were.
Yeah. Has anyone managed to make a candle? Can we show off? Does anyone mind if I take a picture of the screen? So if you want to show up the things you've made, if you don't mind, just something to show the funders that we haven't spent the money on our own. Oh, brilliant. Yeah, there's some lovely candles. Oh, let me take a screenshot. Smile. Thank you very much. See if it saves. Yeah, great. And if you don't mind, if you make yours later, and if you wouldn't mind sharing the pictures with us, that would be great. Again, just to prove to the funders that we've done this, that we haven't squirreled the money away.
Yeah, we'll do that when we unpack and we find out.
Oh yeah, no, I appreciate.
We can find the iron.
Yeah.
I'm very impressed that somebody has a crafting iron and an expensive iron, because I always intend to do that.
I bet there's somebody else on this conversation. Nicola, have you got a crafting iron as well?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. We're both professional crafters, you see. That's the issue. Yeah.
I have to say, we didn't have a crafting iron before we started, but we definitely do that now.
Yeah.
Well, that paper soaking up method should hopefully help, but
Yeah.
right. Well, it sort of feels like we're already heading towards chatting. I don't know. Do you want to hear a bit about helping pollinators, or? Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
sure.
This won't be as long, so just a few tips, and then we can break into smaller rooms so that we can have a bit of chat if you fancy. So just one last time to share my screen. So yeah, just a few tips I thought, because at Sendix, of course, we are kind of looking after the nature reserve, and as I said, there's more than 1,000 species. We know, I think there's about 60 different species of pollinators, more than that, I believe. So the honeybees are, they're great, they make the honey, but actually there's a lot more different ones to look after as well. So we sort of try and improve what we can for their benefit, using heritage skills such as scything, which is a much kinder way to manage grasslands. It's better for the wildlife. It's a great workout as well. It's a really good skill to learn. So our volunteers really enjoy that, and it gets them fit. So just a few sort of things that we can do to help pollinators. So sort of top 5 tips, as I would like to kind of call them. And I know this may be controversial, especially in the UK, because lawns seem to be something that people just love, and there's lots of. I kind of, as a Czech, I don't quite get it, but but lawns, I guess, are here to stay. But there's still ways to sort of make them a little bit more wildlife friendly, and by simply just doing less. So just easing up on grass mowing, allowing the grass to grow a bit longer. It means that also in the summer, if you do that, it's not going to look all parched and scorched by the sun when we get it. So easing up on grass mowing is really good. And actually, Plant Life, which is a charity all about sort of plants, they've done a survey, and that has actually shown that pollinating insects and wildflowers thrive best in lawns that are mown only once every 4 weeks. Or if you want to keep, if you're happy with long grass, if you cut it just once a year, then you will get a much better spread of wildflowers and pollinating insects. So ease up on grass mowing if you can. Then if you can, grow a wide range of plants. Variety really is the spice of life, and biodiversity can be promoted best by providing lots of different, a range of plants. So from annuals and perennials to shrubs and trees, to provide the food and shelter that lots of different wildlife will benefit from. And if you can't do it at home, if you haven't got a garden, is there a community garden near you, or a green space that you could help out, or can you support someone else who can? Oh, yes, Jackie, have you got a question?
I was just going to ask, because I'm being a bit thick really, but I thought people burnt peat. I thought it was a way of being ecological. Is that the word?
Oh, no, let me get to Peat. Let me finish off the other points and then I'll get to Peat. Good
Excellent.
question. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so yeah, grow a wide range of plants, and actually, and I think it's actually just been, but there's lots of advice on how you can actually grow vegetables at the same time as catering for wildlife. And actually it can be really helpful for your veg growing. So, companion planting is quite a good way to protect your crops whilst actually providing wildflowers that insects can feed on. So it will be good for your crops and yields as well as for wildlife. Choosing and growing organic is a really big one, because a lot of the sort of demise on sort of decline in insect species is certainly through the use of chemicals in growing our food and in our gardens. So if you try choose and grow organic, that is a really good thing. That will be good for your health as well as for the wildlife. And of course, at the moment in the UK, there's a bit of a battle going on because the government promised not to use neonicotinoids. No, I don't think I got it right. It's a particular type of pesticide which they promised to ban, and now they're going back on their word. So if you're interested, there's a campaign going on to try and prevent them from going back on that, because that is one of those pesticides that has been proven that is particularly bad for bees, because it messes with their navigation systems and can kill them as well. So yes, trying to avoid chemicals in our life, good for us, good for wildlife. When it comes to peat, try and avoid using it in gardening. It's a popular ingredient in compost mixes, but it really is a bad thing to do, because peat bogs are really precious wetland habitats. There's very little of them left around the world, and they're really good alternatives to peat-based compost. especially if you make your own. And I know it's burned in Ireland, but actually, again, burning anything is just really not good. So and it destroys within minutes. It destroys something that took millions of years to form. Peat takes a very, very long time to form because it's basically sort of organic material that has sort of under pressure and without any oxygen has turned into this sort of amazing black stuff. And it takes a very long time to form and a very short time to burn. So it's really not a good thing to do. Sorry, Elizabeth, did you have a question?
Yeah, I just wondered, in equestrian, peat is used for horse and equine bedding. And I wondered where you can find more information on that. I'm within the equine industry, and I just wondered where I can find information to help people stop using peat, because this is something that I never knew, and I'm sure a lot of equestrians all over are using it, and obviously it needs to be left.
I didn't know that it was used for that purpose, I must say. I knew that, I think, wood chippings and things like that, and straw, didn't know that peat was. So that's news for me. There's definitely, so I think Garden Organic or Soil Association, there are different campaigns sort of working on peat, so reducing the use of peat. So I can try and do a bit of research, or if you want to have a look on the internet, there's definitely campaigns to sort of try and do that. And I think the government has sort of promised, again, I don't know what the timeline is. So yeah, there's a lot of actually, in horticulture, there's been quite a lot of work done on sort of trying to reduce the use of peat. And I think now the packaging is better in terms of showing you what the content is. So if you look out for sort of 100% peat-free compost, it should now be easier to find it than it used to be. And or at least it will show you kind of what the percentage is. One way, if you just really, I know that some people just love peat because of the qualities it has in sort of keeping moisture and things like that, although there are alternatives. But if you just are, you know, really want to use peat, then maybe you can look out for compost mixes, which are, you can get peat when water companies tap water, when they collect water from sort of from the Pennines and places like that. Peat that comes off from the hills, actually that's a contaminant in the water, so they have to clean it out. So you can actually get compost mixes which use peat from that process. So it's peat that otherwise would actually get wasted. So you can look out for that. I don't know whether equine industry has any kind of initiatives to try and reduce the use of peat. But yeah, there's definitely things that I think Friends of the Earth had a campaign on that at some point. But yeah, if you can influence it in some ways, that would be absolutely amazing, because it does seem a bit I don't want to say, you know, it just seems like there must be other ways that you can keep horses happy.
Yeah, there's plenty of other ways. It's just something that I thought, I didn't even know that there was a problem, yeah, or an issue.
Yeah, no.
But thank you for that.
Doesn't it help stop flooding, Ivana? Yeah, because it's got the sort of sponginess, it holds a lot of water and so stops water coming down and flooding housing and so on.
Yeah, so I mean, peat bogs, proper sort of blanket bogs, they will do. I mean, there are actually quite a lot of degraded moorlands in this country as well. So because of the, oh gosh, we're getting quite deep here, but because a lot of land in the UK is devoted to grouse shooting and moors like that, which are heavily managed. They are not actually natural landscapes at all. They're heavily managed to make it attractive to the red grouse, which are not even native birds. So actually, particularly in Calderdale, for example, the areas, the hills above the places there have been almost denuded, that it's a very degraded sort of kind of moorland, so it doesn't actually hold as much water as a proper sort of what's the word, moor would do. So restoring those and restoring peat bogs is definitely, again, a good way to build resilience and sort of improve flood protection for places. Yeah, so supporting any campaign that tries to achieve that, and that sort of so the Friends of the Earth, for example, have a campaign to try and double the amount of trees, the tree cover in the UK, because the UK is one of the least forested countries in Europe, with only about 13% of the land area covered in woodland. And again, sort of trees, if they're in the right places, again, you don't want to be planting trees on a blanket bog. That would not be helpful, because that habitat has a different function. So, but planting trees in the right places, again, is a sort of natural way to sort of combat climate change. So again, it's something that can be supported. And certainly cities, again, in cities, in the right places, trees can help, again, clean the air, provide shade, cool down areas. I'm sure, you know, if you walk down a sunny street with no trees on it, it's much less pleasant than walking under the shade of trees. So if you can imagine it on a big scale, then yeah, it's definitely a good thing to do. And last but not least, I would say, is actually connect to nature. So because nature sustains us in so many more ways than we often imagine, and we take it for granted. We are part of it, but we like to forget. And we're, as humans, you know, we're really only good at protecting what we love and what we know. And how can we love what we don't know? So we are part of nature, so it's really important to learn about it. And by taking the time to connect and explore and learn a bit more, then we can grow our love for it, and we can grow our love for the other types of life with which we share this unique planet, so that we can help safeguard its future for everyone. So I think hopefully that gives you a bit of inspiration, and just to kind of, not by way of boasting, but by way of sort of encouragement, I'd like to share sort of a couple of things that I've done. Because of course, then next we kind of all the staff sort of, we try and walk the talk. Is that the phrase? Not just sort of say what we think others should be doing, but also do what can be done. So there's just a couple of examples of what I've done in my garden. So in the first lockdown, I dug a pond, because it's one of the kind of quickest ways, and it's amazing how quickly you start getting different kinds of wildlife into your garden. And so last spring started with a bit of lawn, which I turned over a few months into this. And it took days before the first signs of life started appearing. And within a few months, I had all sorts of diving beetles there, hoverflies landing, and laying eggs. And we only ever saw one male dragonfly twice, I think, visiting the garden. But then we found, this might not look as appealing to you as it does to me, but I think it's really exciting, because that's a nymph. That's of a dragonfly. It's a broad-bodied chaser. I should have included a picture of the adult as well, shouldn't I? But yeah, only saw one male. So we kind of thought, well, we're not going to get any dragonflies. But then I found these, and lots of them in the pond. So clearly there must have been a female visitor as well.
Good.
And yeah, within a few months, you get lots in there. And the other thing I've done is turn my front lawn. So kind of, just try to kind of take out some of the grass, reduce the amount of grass, and plant lots of plugs into it. I was inspired partly by Dave Goulson, so another book tip. The Garden Jungle is brilliant. It's a really good book on sort of how to garden for wildlife and why, and there's lots of interesting facts there about all sorts of different species as well. He's a really good writer. And if you're on Twitter, it's worth following him as well. So full of tips. And this is what it looked like after, I think, in the first year. For the benefit of our neighbours, who were probably getting suspicious of all the dandelions that were in there. We put up a little sign just so that they would know that it's not just, we're not just ignoring it. Our aim is to sort of basically have as many different wildflowers in there as possible. And hopefully this year it's going to be even better. So I think there will be probably at least 20 species in there by now, and hopefully some more in future years. And already we started getting interesting butterflies, such as this skipper and all sorts of others. And last June I took part in the Great Yorkshire Creature Count, which Yorkshire Wildlife Trust organise, and I think I found about 50 species, which I was a little bit disappointed by, but because I thought there's more than 1,000 at Sendix. But then I didn't have as much expertise or energy or time as our volunteer wild watchers do. So it's just to kind of inspire you. You can achieve quite a bit in a relatively small space, and soon enough. It's like with building roads, actually, and cycle paths. If you want more cars, build more roads. If you want more people cycling and walking, then build cycle paths and make walking more pleasant. And if you want more wildlife in your garden, then just provide the variety, make it a little bit easier for wildlife to find its place, and it will come. Nature will find you. So I think that's pretty much it. If you like what Sendix does, then do join us. There's lots of different ways to support us, and from joining as a member or volunteering when the pandemic is over. We will be very happy to welcome new volunteers, to making a donation or buying a charity gift card. But most of all, I'd like to thank you for listening.